Come on in. I'm Dr. Brenda Wade, and I am here in gorgeous, romantic Napa Valley, California. We're at the Don Giovanni Bistro, and Napa Valley, as you know, is famous for wine, food, and romance. What better setting to talk about love? Come on in. Hi there, I'm Dr. Brenda Wade. I am so excited to share what I have learned after 25 years of working with thousands of couples in my seminars via television. Some of you know me from the various television shows that I've hosted on PBS, Can This Marriage Be Saved, for example, in national syndication. But the most important thing to me is when a couple falls in love and they begin that journey. And even if you're single and looking for love, you are already on the journey of love. And most people think, when I find love, I fall in love, I find the magic person, we're together, we're married, that's it. No, there is no sailing off into the sunset. Once the sun sets, the real journey of marriage begins. The real journey of relationship begins. And whether you are black, white, gay, straight, young, or old, the journey requires skill. It requires insight, it requires inspiration, and it requires action. So we're going to talk today about a model I created called IISA. I call it ISA, and that's inspiration, insight, skill, and action. And you may want to write a few of these things down, so grab your pen and paper or get your computer out, because the one thing I know for sure is that when we are prepared for the journey of love, that's when the journey sustains the love itself. That's when the love actually grows. Those are the couples who after 20 years say that their relationships are still satisfying. All right, so let's get right into our work. I want to tell you about a couple I worked with in one of my seminars, and generally I would take a 2-day intensive seminar or a 6-week teleseminar to share what we're going to cover in the next 30 minutes. So I'll be using accelerated learning. We're going to move really fast, and I want you to just speed up and stay with me. You can watch this video as many times as you choose so you get it all. Right, the first principle, the most important principle, is to go to the top. There's a principle called the Hermetic axiom that simply says, you've all heard it before, it simply says, as above, so below. So when we look at IISA, we're going to the top. We're going to start with inspiration. Now, what is inspired love? Inspired love means I set a very clear intention for my relationship. Why do you want to be in a relationship if you're single? Why do you want to be in a relationship if you're in a couple? What is your intention? Now, I will tell you that life has a curriculum, and that curriculum, and this is very important, if you don't remember anything else I say, I want you to just do this. This is the accelerated learning part. Take a breath and say, I am here to learn to love unconditionally. That's why I'm here. And whoever is in my life is part of me learning how to love unconditionally. Where does it begin? With me learning to love myself unconditionally. Now that's the intention for any relationship, and for it to be healthy, you've got to know, why am I doing what I'm doing? It's to learn to love unconditionally. Now that we know that, guess what? You can figure it out. Every single thing that happens is an opportunity to practice unconditional love. Now, the inspiration part is, just like I'm going to take a sip from my cup of coffee, I take a sip from my inspiration. My inspiration keeps me watered, keeps me fueled. It keeps me thinking, am I learning? Am I growing in my capacity to love unconditionally? I just had a challenge in my life, like the couple that I spoke about. They came to me because his mother became very, very ill, and suddenly they, as a newly married couple, were caring for his mom who was terminally ill. And this is in the first year of their marriage. So this is Susie and Joe, and oh my God, did it set their world on end. And right away, this young couple was tested. And what a challenge. Mom was not only ill, but even in the best of times. Joe's mom had been pretty demanding and really seen him as her baby boy, and Susie more as an interloper. So they had to sit down and say, what can we learn? How can we grow our capacity to love, even while we're in the midst of a challenge? Now, I'm going to change that sentence. It's not even while we're in the midst of a challenge, it's because we're in the midst of a challenge, we have an even greater opportunity to learn. So, the first thing they did was take a sip of inspiration. What can we learn? And the very first thing Susie had to learn, and this was a very profound lesson, we go from inspiration to insight. She had to learn that Joe's mom was not her mom, even though she loved her. Therefore, she had to be very, very clear about how she felt. This is a tricky part, everybody. Here comes a landmine. How she felt about her own mother, and not to project that onto Joe's mom. Susie's mom had been the sweetest cupcake of a mom. So Susie's way of relating to a mother was to expect Joe's mom to be that way. And haven't you noticed that when we expect people to be a certain way, generally we end up disappointed? Why? Because it's more powerful to accept people for who they are rather than expect them to fit our pictures. So insight gives us a way to look at, what do I bring to the party? What's my picture of love? What's my picture of being a mom? What's my picture of what I think a mate should be? And rather than expecting that, I now practice. Now we're dropping from inspiration to insight to skill, and the skill set we're working with is, I accept. I accept you for who you are, all of you for who you are, because each one of us is a whole being with a history, with dreams, with passion, with desires, with likes and dislikes, and I accept all of that. That is so critically important. All right, now, if you want to know a really great secret, when we get to the A's and we're talking I-S-A, there's a skill, and we get to the bottom, do you remember what that A stands for? It stands for action. Now, the action that Susie and Joe had to take, and I coached them very carefully throughout our weekend seminar together, to keep looking to the inspiration. We're here to learn, to keep asking the question, what are we learning? How can we learn? How can we grow in this situation? Susie and Joe both worked with insight. They both worked on that skill set of accepting the situation, accepting one another, getting away from expecting to accepting, and now we're ready for action. So the action they took, they decided that every morning, literally, they would pour a cup of inspiration. Because I love using these kinds of physical metaphors, so you might pour yourself a cup of inspiration, and they would sip it together, and they would literally say, this is what I've learned about love in the last 24 hours, and they would share it every morning. That was their morning ritual. And that was a powerful action that got them through that time of testing and challenge. And I'm happy to say that today, Susie and Joe are in their own right coaching other couples. Because once you learn these skills, and that's the beautiful thing I like about IISA, you can teach it to anybody. I get asked questions all the time, as you might imagine. And the number one question that I get asked by women is, if he won't come in to a class or take a seminar with me, or even come in for coaching, how can I make the relationship better? It takes two, doesn't it? No. Okay, let me tell you something. It does not take two, it takes one. So if two people are dancing, we're doing the tango or whatever dance we're doing. We've got little music in the background here at the bistro. If one person changes the steps, that dance is different, isn't it? So think about it. If I am learning my lessons of love and I am beginning to grow, doesn't that make a difference in how my partner feels? Now, let's get to one of the core principles of one person changing the dynamics in a relationship. And if you take it on and say, I have the power to create the change I want, instead of saying what, actually I had a client of mine say this to me yesterday. She says, why do I have to be the one? I said, because you are. But if you take it on not from a place of I'm the victim, but from a position of I'm the one who has the power to create this change, that feels a lot better, and it allows you to put your heart into what you're doing. So here are the steps if you're the one making the change. Number one, and please, you might want to write these down, remember, everything is energy. Everything is energy. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, your beliefs are all energy. We're generating energy. And if I'm in a relationship, and I've been divorced, so let me tell you, I know just how the journey can fall apart. So I want to teach you, not based on I've got it all locked up and it's all great, but from what I've learned from making a mistake and falling on my face. Not once, twice. And boy, talk about a great teacher. One of the things I used to do in my relationship, and I learned it from my mom, God bless her, wonderful woman, but very critical. She was an educator, highly critical, was I would silently, and I wouldn't let it come out of my mouth, but I would silently critique my mate. And I would catch myself doing, no, 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 no. So I had to learn to look for what is right. Now that's the number one tool, because it prevents a relationship from falling apart. It prevents highly conflicted communication, and I call this the blame buster. Because the minute we let ourselves go into criticism, criticism leads to blame. And if I blame someone, it's all over. Because blame creates distance. And in a few minutes, you're going to see a little demo on how that works. So it's important. I'm looking for a way to learn to love unconditionally. The first step for me is to look for what's good, look for what's right, and to actually write that down. At the end of every night before you go to bed, I challenge you. Write 5 things that you found today that you are grateful for in yourself and in your mate. And if you're single, write down the 5 things that you want to be grateful for in your mate. That energy will go out and you'll draw your mate to you that much faster. Now, the other answer to that question, can I change a relationship all by myself? Once I start practicing being grateful and I practice looking for what's right, the next thing I have to do is allow myself to practice one of the most profound tools of all, which is if my mate makes me angry, upsets me, irritates me, oh, your socks are on the floor again, whatever it is, you've got to practice forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the great sweepers. And you can sweep away any hurt, any pain by doing 2 steps. Now, forgiveness isn't 1 step, it's 2. The first step is, this is what I feel. I actually feel hurt, I feel sad, I feel mad, whatever it is. Let the feelings come up and out. Remember, it's spelled emotion, energy in motion, because that's what feelings are. They're energy, and they're energy in motion. The second step is, I forgive the other person from the bottom of my heart, and you keep your hand on your heart. The second step is, I ask them to forgive me for whatever part I played, because generally we're all innocent, but there just might be a part you played. Now the hardest part of forgiveness of all is to forgive ourselves for what we think we may have done wrong in any situation. Okay, makes sense? I'm going to look for what's right and practice that like it's a new religion, writing down 5 things every night, and I'm going to practice forgiveness. Because if I don't practice forgiveness, I'm going to go back to my coffee cup here for a minute, then I'm practicing resentment, and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So let's put down the poison and practice forgiveness. Now I want to show you something. You saw that Kelly was having a tiff with her beloved, and the biggest mistake she was making is she was blaming. Now I promised you, blame busters. Blame looks like this, first of all. You never give me what I want. You're always the one who's behind, and it makes me so angry. Now, watch this. Now try to get close to me. That's as close as anyone can ever get if you're blaming. So when I see couples who haven't touched each other or had sex in years, I know there's a lot of anger and blaming going on under the surface. And I actually worked with a couple, hadn't touched each other in 6 years, but they never fought. They were always smiling. They were just sitting on all that resentment all the time. So blame creates distance. Now most people when they're blamed react like what? What would you do if you're being blamed? Blame right back. Now watch this. We double the distance now because both of us are blaming. And some people when they're blamed, now you blame me, respond like this. They shut down and turn away. So either way you cut it, you may want to write this one down. Blame creates distance. It creates distance. It's the opposite of what we want. Now what's the answer? Instead of blaming, if I'm upset, I would say, and I want you to practice this, I would take Kelly's hands and say, Kelly, I feel hurt when you come home late without calling me. That's the first piece, what I feel. Now here's the second piece, the most important piece, and most people never remember to put this piece in, so I emphasize it in my seminars. It's called a request. What I would like is if you'd please call me if you're going to be late. Then I know that you're going to be home at a certain time and I feel cared for. Would you do that for me, please?
Absolutely.
Great. Now most people would rather get a request any day than get a big old mountain of blame. So thank you for standing in and learning how to do that. And will you practice that with Bill?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. Stay tuned. I hope you've learned some tools that you can use to keep your love fresh and exciting. And if you're single, you're going to be locked and loaded when you find that right one, because you will be the right one, and that's what's important. So stay inspired, keep working on your insight, keep sharpening those skills, and take appropriate actions. Now we've reviewed some very important ways to stay inspired. Number one, why are we in love? What is the purpose of love? It's to learn to love unconditionally. The insight is, what do I bring to the party? What are the love patterns that I learned? And believe me, just like I had a mom who was critical, and I learned about being critical, even if I didn't say it, absolutely 100%, we all have a love communication pattern. Dig in. What did you learn? When we're little, did you know the brain works just like a video camera? It takes a picture of everything. And little children can't filter, so they believe it's reality. The next thing we worked on is that all-important S of skill. That is, instead of expecting, I accept. And I practice accepting myself and you as a whole being. And I practice forgiveness. And finally, we take action. The action of expressing feelings, making requests, and I want you to keep a little love journal. Now, I want to tell you one very important piece of research. Everyone needs to know this, and I want you to spread it around like wildfire. The research shows that there are 50% fewer divorces for people who do premarital training and coaching. That's why I started my seminars. I saw that statistic. I looked at my own marital failure and thought, what if I'd had coaching? What if I'd taken those seminars? So they are now available to you. The second thing you need to know is, even if you're married and you're hitting some bumps, and everybody does, if you get training and coaching, the divorce rate drops by another 50% for those couples. Now think about that. 50% premarital coaching, 50% fewer divorces if you hit a snag after you're in a life partnership. That means the divorce rate should only be 8.5%, not the 50 to 51% we've seen for the last 40 years. We can do better, and you know what makes that possible? When we learn better, we do better. Now here's the last question that I have to look at with you. Why don't more people do the training? Why don't they take the seminars? Why don't they read the books? Because most people are afraid to take the risk. They're afraid of what somebody might say. They're afraid of being vulnerable or being exposed. Well, to be in love is to be vulnerable. And if you keep learning and growing as a person and as a lover, those are the people who have the strongest relationships over time. I want you to have them. That's why I created the Love, Money, and Save Us seminars. And you don't have to take my seminars. Just make sure you find some that are really excellent. Immerse yourself, take that risk, keep growing in your capacity to love. That's what we're here for. I'm Dr. Brenda Wade. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Blessings, everyone.